When you have a relationship with the land, there's more initiative and passion put towards saving it and revitalizing it. I've had people in my family taking care of this ecosystem for many generations. They will know more than a scientist that has spent maybe a couple of years researching it.
I grew up in one of the Garry oak ecosystems on the Cowichan Reserve. We had that intimate relationship with the land. We could go to different locations to do our harvesting.
I've learned about the Garry oak trees, how they'd been part of a very important ecosystem for my ancestors for generations upon generations, and that protecting these trees and the ecosystems they belong to really mattered.
Ait squael, siemna siea, antha mai modest, salatias huelmoch ath snate, tenit denat quamatsin, nich na main, Chris Modest, nich na tain, Brianna Thorne, Seatla, Diane Modest, e Seatla eth, Wes Modest, e Seatla, Deb George, e Seatla eth, Ron George. So what I just shared was good day, my honored friends and family. My name is Maya Modest and my traditional name is Salatia, and I come from the village of Cowichan in Cowichan territory. My father is Chris Modest and my mom is Brianna Thorne. On my father's side, my grandparents are Diane Modest and the late Wes Modest. And on my mom's side, my grandparents are Deb George and the late Ron George.
Right? I was privileged enough to grow up beside a creek.
Yeah.
So there's always
This society, Stakea Learning Society, is my grandparents' dream, and my late grandfather comes from this traditional village called Huaquang. Even though this has been our village for thousands of years, there's still stipulations that we have to follow being in a BC park. So we purchased a 10-acre property, one parcel away from our village. So being on our own private land will mean that we get to conduct ceremony, we get to dig a hole without getting a permit for it. So it's really exciting for our restoration work and for our cultural work. In the field here at Huaquam, our grandmother's garden, it's been for 200 years that the land that we're on has been used for agriculture. These fields have been hayed many times over, tilled many times over, and so we fight the invasives every day. Noxious grasses, Scotch thistle, Scotch broom, these are all remnants and relics of the agricultural use.
Okay, my name is Ken Elliott. My Hulkaminum name is Sith Namat. My Hulkaminum name was handed down to me from my grandmother on my mother's side of the family. I am a Cowichan Reserve member, born and raised. I've seen our neighborhood transform over my lifetime, and a lot of times it's not the greatest changes as far as the land and different habitats or ecosystems.
Hi, Ken.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes.
It's good to see you. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Beautiful day.
So we do have cloning, working with cuttings of the various species. They'll be used in the restoration work going on at Cowichan Park on Salt Spring Island. Okay, so in these pots we experimented by taking some of the seeds when they were ready, but leaving some of the seeds in the pods. When the season's over and the rainy season comes, we've tried to encourage the seeds to fall into its own pot with its mum or fall into a neighboring pot with its cousins or neighbors. So the plants we're growing at the nursery, the camas, the yarrow, the nodding onion, are intended for restoration projects. Cowichan on Salt Spring Island has leaned on us for growing plants for the Burgoyne Bay Provincial Park site. They have the same experience at Cowichan. The deer go, oh, it's time to go down to the Garry Oak garden in the field. And so the deer family meanders down and they'll start to eat on the camas that are growing, the lilies that are growing. And so they needed to fence it. And unfortunately, it was an agricultural field. Introduced species of grasses that were feed for cattle, feed for sheep, feed for goats. So they're working with parks employees to understand what the best recipe would be to turn that agricultural land back into natural brush habitat.
I think a lot of the time Western science approaches things in a very sterile environment with a lot of process and a lot of methodology and all these things. And my process has been going to my elders and has been going to sit with the people who've quite literally grown up with this ecosystem and plant and have had a relationship with it. I think that more Indigenous people need to be involved in conservation methods all across the world. I think we'd be in a far better place if more people asked the Indigenous people of the land, what can we do?
Okay, what I have going here is great camas. Pull it from the pot and just show you what's going on in the ground. They're just starting. It's not a 4-year-old, otherwise it would have seed heads or a blossom. And so this is probably maybe a 3-year-old because they are getting big. Being a great camas, the bulb part is what was harvested as the food. So now we're getting our camas going back. We're getting all of the companion plants that like to share time with the Garry oaks.
The role that camas has played in our history is very integral and important. Camas and Garry oak are embedded into our food systems because we've had a relationship with it for the past thousands and thousands of years. We would go across the ocean to the Fraser River Trade Corridor and trade camas bulbs. It being the responsibility of women to take care of these meadows, it became a very intergenerational learning process. It's very important to me to revive this staple food as, I have a 97-year-old grandmother, Bertha Modeste, who's never tasted camas before. She remembers being in the meadow with her mum and going to the meadow as a child, but she's never tasted camas before. I think of her every time I'm in my garden, every time I go and tend to the meadow. I think of her and I think that, we need to get camas back on elders' plates.
Yeah, so these are side roots here. So now I'm in the root material. I can be guaranteed it's not going to grow back. And it's important to get it off the site.
Ed Carswell, Intha Shannon Waters. I'm Shannon Waters. I am a Hulkamitnam person from this territory. I have family ties. I'm a member of Stamanis First Nation, and I have a lot of family ties to Cowichan tribes as well. I have lived in the Cowichan Valley with my husband and my 2 daughters for the last 10 years. It was a different process purchasing a home that was on a land covenant. It just is a real honor to be able to be here, have my kids run around, have them learn what the plants are and how they look in different times of the year.
Being able to visit with you has touched my heart. And for me to be able to share some of my teachings with you. Yeah, you go ahead. Oh.
I need to smell it one more.
We got lucky. So maybe about 3 weeks ago, there may have been white blossoms here. And so these are white fawn lily plants. So the stem goes into the ground and there's a corm. So it looks like a little bulb. And the corm has 2 halves. And then there's the root system dangles down below.
When I was looking at my priorities in my work as a public health physician, what's called the medical health officer, looking after the health of the people within Hulkamitnam territory, I thought about a few things, including looking back at our ancestral story as Cowichan peoples. The story says that the first men fell from the sky onto Cowichan territory, and they walked the land to become in relationship with it, and they bathed in the waters to grow a relationship there. The first woman walked from Souk to Cowichan and formed a union, and from that came the Cowichan peoples. And I thought about it in the context of looking after health of populations, in that initially connection to the environment, the places where we live, can help create mental well-being. And that mental well-being fosters the health of the community, particularly through maternal, child, and family well-being, which creates the basis for healthy communities to be living together. Being in places like these Garry Oaks ecosystems, you can feel being refueled just by sitting amongst them or walking amongst them. That really is the basis for health.
Prior to colonization and settlement, a lot of the time our people would use fire to manage Douglas fir encroachment on the Garry Oak ecosystems. Our people actually learned to do that by watching lightning strike and by watching the lightning catch the grass on fire and realizing that after that cycle happened, the nutrients that fell from the ashes would fertilize the soil and that the camas and all the plants would come back invigorated and stronger, healthier, with more nutrients, more vibrant. It played a very important role in our society. In general, fire is very important to us. And I really hope that I can incorporate fire back into the landscape.
We didn't have schools, so Mom, Grandma, these were our teachers for our family circle. They would watch the children as they're growing up and watch how they were conducting themselves and say, they're ready now for us to start to teach them about the medicines, about the foods, about the tools. And so at the nursery, we teach about the transition for the introduced species to becoming invasive plants. We teach them about the native species of plants that get crowded out. Flexible. I noticed that the younger ones were stronger advocates, and I referred to them as my young ambassadors. If you want, you can peel the skin off, and then you can chew on it. So it's sweet.
I have very big dreams for our grandmother's garden. But I feel that I am just the start of those dreams. I think of my great-grandfather's words, that whole mountainside being blue with camas. That is my goal. That is my dream. I want to see our youth knowing this ecosystem, having a relationship with camas and our elders, and to see that revitalization of our food sovereignty. We call it coming home because we haven't had our village active since colonization and settlement happened. So we've been intentionally excluded from this land for the past 200 years, and now we're coming back. And with that, we've invited many species at risk back as well. So we know what we've done here is good, and now we want to take that and expand it.
Sugar in the old days, we'll call it. So before, yeah, long time ago, we didn't have sugar. And so we would harvest that root tip